Welcome back. Today, I'm talking about Valorant franchising. I never got a chance to make a big video when it was first revealed, but instead I'm going to go through the 30 teams. I'm going to separate it into NA, EU, and Asia, and give my tier list and rankings of at least the preliminary rankings of where I think everybody's going to be. We know very little about them. Some have scrimmed a little bit, have done some show matches or whatnot, but we don't know a lot about these teams, so we're kind of going off of our judgment calls. I also don't know anything behind the scenes. So it's basically just looking at the teams and saying how I think they're going to gel together and what we've seen from them previously. I have S as kind of the international contenders, those who I think I can win it all. A is regional contenders, so people that will think competitive at the top of their region. Regional mediocrity and regional struggle, because there's definitely a few strugglers out here for being a franchised team. Let's start off with the Sentinels. Sentinels. Amazing team. I'm so happy that they finally have like this sort of identity outside of just being the influencer team. They have Tens, Zekin, Def, Saucy, Pancata, and Psycho as their coach. Now it's really important because this team really didn't have a direction prior to this franchising model, right? They had Tens, amazing player, still one of the biggest influencers, one of the best players. Crazy how good he is on such a dog shit team. Okay, I don't want to say they're dog shit, but they weren't really going to win anything, at least with their current form. But now they have amazing pieces and an amazing coach. So the biggest pickups for sure are, at least the surprising pickups, are Saucy and Pancata, the two loud players, two world champions. They just won it. Getting the opportunity to play on the Sentinels roster in one of the biggest rosters is huge for them. Additionally, Zekin and Def are two insane players. This roster of Zekin, Saucy, Pancata, Tens, and Def's an amazing IZL, don't get me wrong, but those four guys are some of the best players in the world, at least individually, right? I think adding Psycho as a coach, who's a very, very team-oriented guy, I think he's going to create such an interesting identity for them and how they're going to play. And again, they have amazing pieces, but it's all going to come down to how they gel together. And I think as good as they are, they might not be as strong as some of the other teams. So I'm hesitant, even though they might be so much better than some of the other EU or Asian teams, I have to have them as a regional contender just because of how strong some of these other North American super teams are. All right, next we'll talk about Cloud9. Cloud9, Jesus Christ, they know how to make a team. Leaf, Zelsis, Zeppa, Vanity, Ye, MCE as the coach. Holy Christ, they took the best player in the world, added him on one of the best teams, took Zelsis, one of the most consistent players from North America, adding him as well. Their team is so good. Leaf, amazing duelist. I think he still has more room to grow. He's still a young guy, and he's still improving. He can go off insane runs. He does have some low games, but I think with the addition of Ye and Zelsis, it's going to really add that consistency needed. Zeppa, one of the best flex players in all of North America, really, really stepping his game up, especially near the end with Cloud9. He was one of the best players. Vanity, amazing AGL. And adding MCE as the coach is absolutely insane because you saw what he did with the guard roster, right? Took them to Masters' very first run, and they were still a threat, especially in the last chance qualifiers. So I think this roster, by far, one of the best, multiple S-tier players, good consistency, and huge potential. They honestly might win it all. I'm having them as an international contender. Next, we have 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves kept, for the most part, their roster intact, with the exception of replacing Superman with Cryo. They also had to move on from their coach, Sean Garris, who did an amazing job with them, adding Mike's HD, who was, I believe, his assistant coach at the time. So this team keeps the consistency. So I think they're going to have more gel between them, which was a really big thing for that 100 Thieves roster, especially to make it as far as they did. Cryo, we all know how good he is. Played insane, especially for XSET, at Champions, at Master events. One of the best players, probably one of the best duelists in the world for sure. Adding him alongside Austin, who's, again, another diamond. He's amazing. I think where it's kind of interesting is Derek Bang and Stellar are still great players. We saw especially what Derek could do in the clutch, but I think there were other options, especially from an individual perspective, that could have been better, but it's going to come down to how they play in the system. Stellar is noticeably lacking. Like Xander is still unsigned. I think he actually signed to that new XSET roster recently. So it's going to be all how they gel together. I'd consider this maybe not a super team, but I think it's definitely the best homegrown North American team. I'm going to have to give it an A, but they honestly, if they can gel well, they have the potential to be another international guy. So I decided to actually add a little bit more because since the recording of the last video, some teams actually have played from North America on the international stage, mainly through the Red Bull Homeground events. That's actually still going on right now, but I'm not going to wait for it to finish up. Cloud9 and 100 Thieves, two of the better North American teams. And as I kind of predicted, I think the super team tag that I've kind of been assigned to these guys has held true. Cloud9, 2-1 in groups, plus 32 on the day. They seemed like a dominant favor. They had a little slip up against Focus. And 100 Thieves on the other side, 3-0 clean sweep against good franchise teams, Liquid, Heretics, Foot Esports. We're going to get to them later. And I think for the most part, it's kind of held true, my ratings of them and how I think they're going to be. Cloud9, again, with the replacement of players, it's going to be hard to just jump right in, especially not having played professional Valorant in quite a while now. They've definitely been playing scrims and stuff, but there's a big difference. Yay looks good. I didn't get a chance to watch them all because I'm doing exams right now, so I have to go back and sit down and actually watch these to the fullest. But again, they look good. Also on 100 Thieves size, dude, it's literally just 100 Thieves, but with a better player. Most of the team kind of stayed the same for 100 Thieves. It's easier for Crowd to just slot right in, especially as this duelist role. He's just doing Will's job better, I'm sorry to say. Will's also a great player, but Cryo is just next level, and he's showing it. Insane moves. Next, we got NRG. This team came out of nowhere, and it might be one of the, if not the best teams in the world. Let me just list off their team. Victor, FNS, Crashies, Som, Artis, Chet as their coach. They took 3 of the best players in the world, playing for the best team, Victor, FNS, and Crashies, as well as their championship coach in Chet. They added Artis, another LAN winner, an amazing player, and then adding their own homegrown player in Som, one of the biggest influencers to start off, and also one of the best duelists. He's definitely top 5 in North America, I believe. He has some amazing highs. He does have some lows, but I think the consistency provided by these players is going to be crazy. Optics, consistent trio, and their coach elevates their floor to this level that I think it's going to be tough to play with. And it's also a really noticeable thing is that Thwifo is their alternate player. More than just being the alternate player, he's definitely going to provide for this team on another level. Artis and Som are 2 wild pieces they need to add to this roster to make it so interesting. I'm having them as an S tier because I think they're going to be interesting. The only thing kind of holding them back is their gel, and are they going to gel well together? It's going to be interesting. EG is trying something interesting for the Valorant roster. They're trying to do a 10-man roster, which I think is untraditional, but it might just work, especially with North America having 4 other quote-unquote super teams of some of the best players from not just North America, from around the world. It's hard to compete with that. It's hard being a super team, quote-unquote, if you're the 5th best North American team, So instead, they're taking a different approach where they're taking some of the best talents and forming a 10-man roster. Will this win them the whole thing? No, it won't at all. But what they can do is they can build for the future. Maybe they might not have the best players now, but if they can pick up and slowly accumulate and build from the ground up this team of North American champions, and maybe one day win something, I think it'll be a much bigger thing than just picking up the best players right now and trying to make something happen right now. Because if something like NRG or Sentinels fails right now, it's going to be tough because they have all these big contracts, and if it doesn't gel, they might have to rebuild, and it's hard to do it if you have star players. They still have star players on the roster. They have Jajimo, Ethan, BCJ, alongside players like Busio, Calm, Apoth, Reformed, as well as 3 more guys that are unannounced at this point. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do, but I'm going to have to give them a B tier because they don't have that star power just yet. Let's move over to South America, and more specifically, let's go to Brazil. We have Loud, the previous world champions, and unfortunately, they have been a little bit dismantled. Ospa, Sadak, and Les are still on the roster, but their 2 players did get poached by the Sentinels, and you know what? I kind of understand. It's a new world we're going into for international franchising because really teams want to be on the best team, and especially being able to travel is a very big thing. So it's understandable why Saucy and Pancata wanted to move. Couldn't they fill their role? I don't 100% know. Their 2 pickups are Kazin coming from NIP and Twos coming from TBK, who's an interesting pickup. I think they're banking on Twos being the next up. I've not seen him play, so I don't know if he's really that kind of guy. He was definitely the best player on TBK from what I've seen from the box scores. It's going to be interesting how they gel together because Loud had such a clean play style prior to this. especially in Masters and Champions, right? They won the whole thing. Let's not forget that. Probably the second best team from all of last year. So that's a big thing. But again, it's kind of tough losing some of your core identity. Can they do it again? I believe they can, but I think it'll take some time to gel it, especially now that there's these new super teams coming in. It's going to be tough. I'm going to have to give them an A ranking. They could be international contenders, but it's all going to come down to how they perform. My gut feelings telling me I'm just going to give them an A for now. Next, we have Furia. Now, Furia did everything wrong with franchising because they just kind of took their current roster, added a new guy, and said, let's go. Franchising gave a lot of the teams the opportunity to build their ideal roster because everyone wants to play for franchising, so everybody's open to joining your team. They just kind of took their previous roster and said, cool, let's add Mizera, and we're good to go. They have LAN experience from making it to LAN at previous events, even recently, so they're not awful. They're definitely competitive in some aspect, but some of these other teams have added amazing players on top of an already great system, so it's going to be tough for them to compete. Honestly, kind of hot mid. We'll see how they do. I'm giving them a B tier. MIBR, kind of the same story. They took a few of the Brazilian lads, added heat from Keystard, and that's kind of it. I don't have much of an opinion on them. I have not really watched them played all too much. They could be insane. I know Heat is a sniper for sure, but I think it's going to take some time for them to sort of acclimate to the star power that we're seeing from North America. I'm going to give them a B again. Not much to say for this one. Then we have the other South American teams. Leviatan, looking so good. Definitely the best South American team, period. They basically took their already really solid team and just made it better. And they poached the fuck out of Crew. They robbed Crew of their best players, taking Kesnet and Mazzino as two amazing players to add to their already great roster, as well as already having Owner, probably the best coach from South America. Adding these great players is gonna really boost their thing. They're gonna probably be the best South American team alongside Loud, I'd say, especially because Leviatan had already put up some great numbers versus other North American teams, right? Leviatan's consistency, especially prior to all the Masters and Champion events over the past 2 years, they're going to be a great team. I'm excited to see them play. The 10th team from North America is Crew. Now, Crew, a year ago, was an amazing team, especially individually and with their coach, but they've slowly kind of fell from grace. They've lost some of their best players. Again, Kesnet, Mazzino, it's tough to see them go. But they did add Zand and Melzer and Davies onto their roster, keeping Klaus and Nags, two great players, again, Klaus especially, but it really feels like they've lost their identity. I think it's definitely a downgrade. Melzer was a great pickup for sure, and Davies is they're really banking on him becoming the new star because there's no game changer to this roster. I think Davies is coming from Laser, who is a regional team, again, from South America, and these South American teams, especially want to keep their identity from South America. They can't just import the best players from North America. I guess they could. But they definitely want to keep more consistency. So hopefully that these new players, they're banking on finding the next up, right? Because you can't just have this giant pool of players. You kind of have to keep picking and prodding and hoping that people that can fit within the system and work well. I'm going to give Crew a B tier because I think they're going to be good, but I think they're going to have some time to kind of adjust and find their new identity. So this is my ranking, especially for North America. I think it's going to be hyper competitive. The North American teams have such good teams. They're super top heavy, and especially some South American snipers that could make some huge upsets. I'm excited to watch them play, and I'm going to rank the EU and Asias soon.